Hi, welcome to Art and Soul. I'm so glad you could join me again today. It's been a really good day for me, and hopefully it's been a good day for you as well. Last week was a little different. If you got a chance to watch the show, I did a little object lesson about perspective and used a flashlight and a little bottle. And what was funny is that I ended up getting a lot, about 50 emails because of that show last week, and I never painted anything. So thank you for those wonderful emails and responses, and I'm glad that it touched you and helped you. Last week on that show, I used the painting that I started that we're going to be working on here today is one that I showed last week, only it didn't have the cowboys, and we talked about the perspective a little bit when we were doing the show last week. And during the week I started in painting it, blocking it in, and I thought, well, beans, I showed and talked a little bit about that, and I said that I'm going to be bringing in parts of this through over the next month or so. As it develops, I thought I would kind of tonight go through and show you what I've done here, and maybe this might help you in your own painting. So that all being said, what we've got here is this large, this is again on the birch panel, it's 2 foot by 3 foot tall. And I started out with this really nice sky in the background here with these big clouds. And then I incorporated in these three cowboys with their horses. And I've blocked them in pretty good. I haven't finished up blocking in the legs yet and some of the middle ground. But this is kind of how we talked about last week with the perspective. And I didn't want to lose all of this sky up above, because that's what kind of makes this scene work, is that this big plateau or valley that's out there behind them, kind of like that Montana big sky country type of a feel to it. So, when we had talked about the size that we were going to do with the cowboys and the horses, and I actually went a little larger than what I had thought that I would. I had planned on doing it a little shorter down here, but when I started playing with it and sketching it in, it kind of worked. So we're just going to leave it the way it is, and so I've kind of, just like I said, I've kind of blocked things in and started to develop some of the different parts of it. Whenever you're doing animals, you need to be really careful that you make sure that you're anatomically correct in your animals, as well as people for that matter. But especially people that are horse people, they are going to pick up on any little thing that is wrong. So if you're going to paint a horse, you better make sure that you paint it anatomically correct. And that's actually one of the reasons why I haven't developed out these legs yet, because I want to make sure that they are perfect, because if they're not, it's going to look a little odd. So what I've done is I'm just grabbing a little 1/2 inch angular brush here, and I'll go through my palette really quick. I've got several different things that are on here. I've got titanium white, I've got some burnt umber, some burnt sienna, some cobalt blue, some Payne's gray, some of the green, the sap green, purple, and alizarin crimson, and some reds over here to the side as well. So that's kind of what we're using as a base for this. And I'm going to go straight into my burnt sienna. And I want to take, and I've got this, I want to make this middle horse look more towards a paint, so that it has some browns, but it's got white on it as well. Maybe like Little Joe's horse, if you watched Bonanza. And so what I did was I grabbed a little bit of my cad red, and I'm mixing that with the burnt sienna. just to give it kind of a reddish hue to it. And I want to take and I've got this a little redder than what I would like to have. So I'm just going to take and bring in this, I don't even know what color you want to actually call that, but it's a real rich color, and I'm just taking and putting in a little bit of darkening that up a little bit. Make sure that I go up into that mane. And I decided to do this painting. I had some ex-brother-in-laws that were really into horses, and the Walkers boys, and used to love going out riding, trail riding with them, and in fact, yesterday was the date that 6 years ago my brother-in-law Dave, which was one of my best friends, passed away. And so yesterday I took and made a little trip out to the cemetery to pay my respects there, and I used to sit and talk to Dave a lot, and so I just took a little time out of my day yesterday to do that. And it's unfortunately, death is part of our world and part of life, and it's not very fun, but at the same time, it's kind of, I cherish the times that I have had with people while they have been alive, and it just kind of reminds us that we need to kind of cherish the people that are in our world and in our lives, and don't take them for granted. And as I was talking there, I've just been kind of just going over some of this middle horse, just trying to get it a little darker and a little richer color to it than what I had. And right up here across the back of this mule, you'll see part of the back of this middle horse, and I actually had it where you could see more mane, and I didn't care for it. I thought it was just too much. So I'm just going to take and reload up, and I think I'm just going to bring in a little bit of that color that we've been putting down on the chest of that other horse. Put that up here. And those of you that this may be a little more advanced for you than what you are accustomed to, but I think that anytime you can watch, you can glean information that's going to help you in your own painting. So, and I try to do most of the shows where they're a little simpler content than this, and obviously this is, with it being horses and people, is a little more than what we normally do on the show, but this is something that I do on a regular basis in my studio, and I thought that it might help you just in your own painting. So I've kind of blocked in a little bit more of that color, and I don't know if you could really see it very well on the camera, but I didn't kill that lighter color that I had on there. And I think this is where why I like doing this show, is so that you understand and can see the difference in, so many times people think that they have to cover up everything with every time they put paint on, and that's just incorrect. And that's what gives these paintings the depth and the realism that they've got, is because of doing it in layers. Now, this horse over here to the right is more of a chestnut but I want to take and bring in a few of those more reddish highlights in across that, just because the sun is hitting. As you can, this is, well, as I develop this, is going to be more of a shadow color. The shadow actually from this horse is going to be cast over onto this far horse. So that's what this is here, and it'll come together as I work it. But you're still going to have, you've got a very strong light source that's coming in here. So from up above. So I want to take and make sure that I make everything correct so that where that light is hitting, it would be illuminating the right areas and shadowing the right areas. So that's again where that perspective and composition that we talked about last week, where that comes into play in your painting. And I know some of this is repetitive for you, and I hope that it shows up on the screen well for you. But you know, this is the process that I go through, and I hope that you're painting, even though you may not be painting what I'm painting at home. I hope you're taking time out of your week to spend painting or doing whatever you need to do to be creative. And I talk about that all the time. I think it's so important that people have that creative outlet in their life, and I think the people that have that are much happier and more content with life than those that don't have that creative outlet, and they don't have that little part of their day that they can take just for them. So what I did there is I wanted to highlight a little bit of the edge of those ears on that horse. So I just added a little bit of titanium white to that mixture I had of the red and the burnt sienna to give me a little lighter color. And then I just touched a spot here on the cheek, and I do this quite often. I use my finger as a blending brush in a lot of ways. I teach that a lot as well. I think that you can, if you start doing it, you'll love the feel of how it works, and I think you'll like the effects that you can get. Plus it's kind of fun just using your fingers to touch the paint. So done a little bit of those highlights there, and I want to do a little bit with the ears of this mule that's up here, and I am working off of a photograph, and it's really important, especially if you're not a horse person, to know like where the reins and the lead ropes and the bridle, where those things are at, and how they connect on to the head. Those things are really important. So if you don't know those things, I would encourage you to get some reference material so that you can do that. Now I'm grabbing just a little bit of the Payne's Gray, which Payne's Gray, if you're unfamiliar with Payne's Gray, it's a very light black. And in fact, this mule, the base color is pretty much all of that Payne's Gray with a little bit of white to it. And that's what I just mixed up on my palette. And I want to take that now. See, that's a little darker than I want. I want that to be lighter, so I'm just going to grab a little bit of the titanium white. And I've still got a little bit of residual on my brush, so it's going to still carry that, but it still have the pop that I want on that ear. And if you notice, as I'm doing this, I don't take and mess around with a whole bunch of little strokes. I want those colors to pop, and the only way to do them without turning into mud is just doing these quick, fast strokes. And that's what gives the illusion of the light coming in. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now I should have pointed it out, and I will now on the rest of the body of this mule. A lot of times people try to jump too quickly to the highlights, and it's kind of a little bit of a cat and mouse game. I kind of use it as an example. If you've ever watched a cat that's got a mouse cornered, it's this kind of this jockeying back and forth about when he's going to pounce, and I think that that's a good way of kind of looking at it at your painting, because I think that you kind of are always trying to get to where everybody wants to jump to those highlights, but if you haven't done the groundwork to get there, they are just not going to be as effective as what you would like. And so as we talk about, it goes in the layers, and every time you do a layer, you are just getting closer to that pouncing of that final highlight. And so it may sound like a crazy analogy, but you've probably got used to hearing my crazy little analogies. But just don't jump too quickly is the bottom line into trying to get to that end product, because usually you're not going to be happy with it if you try to push it too soon. So I'm kind of been going through here. I want to darken up now some of these parts where the sun is not as bright, and I'm going to use a little more of the Payne's gray in some of those areas, and maybe right along this bridle here, because of our light coming in from this direction. This side of that bridle, that leather band that's there, would be shadowed. So I'm coming in with a little bit darker in there. I think that's really an important lesson to learn, is just to constantly be thinking about where your light source is coming from and how it is going to interact and play on your subject matter. And the other part of it too is, what are the colors that you see in that? And like in this particular painting, there's a lot of influences that are both direct lighting as well as indirect lighting. If the light is this intense coming in, then chances are you're going to have reflective light coming up off of the surface, off of the sky colors. There'll be a lot of different colors that are going to be playing in this painting. So constantly be thinking in those terms, because it's easy to get so sidetracked on painting something that you lose sight of where you're going with it, and the effect that you're trying to present. So obviously this mule, I'm going to make him kind of a grayish blue, which a lot of them are, and plus it's a nice contrast with the three colors, with this chestnut horse with a paint there in the middle, and this mule. It's up here on the closest to the viewer. So I'm just adding in some of that gray going up in. Now this right along here would be next to the saddle, and this would be shadowed, some more shadowed color. So maybe what I want to do now is I'll just take and wipe the excess of my paint out of my brush, and I'll grab in just a little bit of the purple along with that Payne's gray. And what that does is it will A, look a little more realistic, and B, what it does is by incorporating in that purple, it ties in with a lot of the purples that are in the rest of the painting. And what I talk about that often is the continuity, trying to maintain the continuity throughout the painting. So if you work one area with a color, try to bring and move that around. You know, we've got some purples and lavenders that are over here, some up there in the sky. So it's a nice contrast, or a nice, where it's bringing it into the painting itself. And those are all things that make it more realistic. And I want to, right here on this shadowed edge of the ears, I want to bring in a little bit of that purple in there as well. And on that back ear that is back there, same thing. And if you notice, I haven't killed all of that gray that I had on there to begin with. And I'm working with very, very, very little amount of paint on my brush. And I'm just going to do the same thing, follow that right down its face, right along that leading edge there. You know, I mean, there's times where it's fun to do the painting, you know, where I can do a whole painting in a show, in a half-hour show, and you know, I'm not saying that that's not good. There's times where I enjoy doing that, but that's not the norm for me. This is more the norm of working in my studio like this on a piece, and you know, and it takes sometimes weeks to get the paintings complete. But you know, there's a lot of pleasure that I get from seeing a painting develop and get to that point. And you know, for some people it's too tedious and it's too frustrating, and that may be you. It may be something that you don't care to paint that way, and that's okay. But you know, it gives you, I think, a pretty good sense of what it's like for the people when you see paintings that look very photographic and very realistic in composition and feel. This is what the process that they go through. And so, you know, maybe it's not something that you enjoy, but at the same time, maybe it's something that you haven't really explored and tried yourself. And if that's the case, then I would encourage you to try it, because it might be something that you find that you really enjoy and brings you some pleasure. And that's an important thing to have happen, is to be able to find that makes you happy and works for you. Now, today was painting, and then I took off and did some yard work for somebody, and I was cutting down berry vines, and the house was kind of overgrown on the one side with these berry vines that had grown up the arborvitaes and basically had come across the house and it covered up part of the roof there and the gutters, and I love blackberry jams and jellies, but these were just completely had taken over, and to the point actually to where it had started to kill out the arborvitaes because it was sucking all the nutrients out of the ground that would feed the arborvitaes. And by doing it, they grew up and grew over the canopy. So the light wasn't getting into those arborvitaes like it used to for them to grow and thrive. And as I'm tearing out these big old stalks of berry vines, it kind of hit me that, so many times what seems like something that's so good, like for me, I love blackberry jams and jellies. Eat it almost every day. But when that plant is allowed to just have free reign, it can overtake, overpower, it can destroy things that are good. That house, fortunately, I was able to get to it in time to save the gutters and part of the roof that looked like if it had continued would have ruined the roof. And I got to thinking about it as I was driving home, and I thought, oftentimes things come up in our life and we let them go because it's too much work to go deal with them, to tear them out. If you let them go, they will grow pretty soon. They will overtake. They will start destroying. And something that was maybe good to begin with, if it's left to run rampant, can destroy in the end. That little plant that produces beautiful fruits could destroy a big, strong tree, could destroy a house, gutters, tore me up today. If it would have allowed to go, it could have taken over that whole property and that whole house and destroyed it. My question to you and my question to myself as I was driving home today, what do I have in my life that I need to weed out, that I need to take the time to prune, to tear back, tear apart, clean up, in order for me to grow strong again? Those arborvitaes this coming year will start growing again because the sun is there and they're going to have the light. They're going to have the nutrients in its life again. It will come back to life. This week, be creative and paint, but think about your own life and the pruning that maybe needs to happen in your life in order for you to grow and blossom and be all that you can be again. Don't let the weeds and the things that come in and grow, be sure to nip them when they're small, otherwise they will destroy in the end. Blessings to you this week. Be creative, and I'll see you next week here on Art and Soul.